Welcome everyone into the latest episode of Fundamentals Front Office Sports' interview show featuring leading operators and voices of the sport industry. I'm the host, Jeff Eisman. I'm not one of those leading voices, but we have some incredible voices coming in right here for our panel, Women in Sport Business, Disruptors, leading the way. And we're going to focus a lot on what UMass is doing, the McCormack Department of Sport Management at UMass. They have a new course, Women in Sport Business, that'll be debuting in February. So awesome stuff from them. And our panel features Associate Professor, Associate Department Chair of the Mark H. McCormack Department of Sport Management, Nicole Melton. And we have two products of that UMass department, Zaileen Janmohamed, Head of Partnership Development and Innovation for LA28, and Karina Herold, Vice President of Major Events for the Los Angeles Sports and Entertainment Commission. My connection to UMass is at the fourth annual McCormack Future Leaders Conference. I spoke, so I never got a diploma or anything like that from UMass, but I feel somewhat out on the exterior connected to you guys. But I want to start with Nicole, because this new class that's coming, I know you're at the center of, and why in this particular time in the world is this an important class happening right now?
So first, thanks, Jeff, for facilitating this conversation and highlighting the work we're doing at UMass and our wonderful alums that are helping us with this initiative. And I think what we've seen in what's going on in the world, it's a very exciting time to be a woman in sport. And coupled with some of the research trends we're seeing, it just sets up well to have this class and to have an opportunity for our women in the program to really put their best foot forward and be set up for success. And so some of the research that we're seeing, it really centers around these three main trends: money, representation, and workplace experiences. And when we talk about money, we're talking about all of this data that we have now that shows that organizations that are more diverse in terms of gender and racial diversity, they just outperform their peers. They're just going to be better on objective measures of success. And why that happens is because when you bring women, you bring racial and ethnic minorities to the table, they bring unique experiences, unique backgrounds, and that just enhances your ideas and your perspectives that are brought. It facilitates innovation, and ultimately you just have better decision making. And organizations recognize this. They want to capitalize on the talent of their women. But unfortunately, which kind of leads to our second point, we have a representation issue in sport. Women continue to be vastly underrepresented in all of our top leadership positions. And, you know, we can bring a lot of data to show us exact percentages. We can talk about that there are more John CEOs than there are women CEOs. But if you just think about it, think about our boys and our young men. They can look around and they can see themselves in all of these leadership positions. So it's very easy for them to dream of being that. But on the other hand, when you think of our girls, it takes a very special girl or young woman to really aspire or dream to be something that she hasn't seen, right? But fortunately, like I said, it's a very exciting time to be a woman. We're seeing progress. Girls are participating in sport more. We see that brands and organizations are recognizing the power of the woman consumer in sport and women's sports leagues. And literally just seeing glass, well, figuratively, I guess, breaking everywhere, right? With Kim Ng most recently as the GM, first woman GM in the Major League Baseball. So we're seeing a lot of great things, but these women had to navigate some barriers to get to where we are. And that kind of brings us to our third point of these workplace experiences. And so when we do the research and we go into these organizations, we see that women still have very different experiences than their men counterparts, right? So that might be that they have less access to these leadership positions. Maybe they're not put on projects where they can be in the best position to get promotions. Maybe not an access to influential networks, those sorts of things. Regardless, there just seems to be a lot of systemic barriers that women have to overcome. And this class really helps highlight those issues and provide the tools to help women overcome them and be successful. And when we were thinking about it and creating it with, you know, folks like Zaileen and Karina, what better way for them to learn this than to speak to our alums who have successfully navigated some of these issues. So we're just very excited to be able to bring all these women together to really enhance the learning environment for our young women in the program.
And Zaileen, I know you conquered Amherst back in around 2003 to 2005. But you do have something to do with this class being created. This was born out of a discussion with UMass. Can you take me through that a little bit?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And conquering Amherst had a lot of pizza eating and other things. So it was a very good and fun time in my life, and the coursework was a part of that story. But I think the strength of UMass and the sport management program specifically is around the strength of the alumni and all alumni that graduate from that program. I don't think I've met one in just conversations that we've had over the course of our careers and our lives that is not ready, willing, able, desires to give back to the program in some way, shape, or form. And so, some of that is around helping students when they graduate and in their career journeys and search. But a lot of that is in, giving feedback in terms of what is going on in the industry and the marketplace to better deliver to UMass information to help them in their current programs, right? And so that's how this conversation started. UMass reaches out, we've stayed very close. And in that conversation, which was just last year, I started to talk about, here are the things that I've been facing as a woman in the industry. Here are the things that I see as new women enter the industry. And, to Nicole's point, they'd already started doing some of this research, right? They'd started to say and see, here are the things that we're seeing in the marketplace as well. And it literally took one conversation of me saying, hey, I think there's something here that we need to build on. And they said, yes, let's get going. And I think that decision was actually made very quickly. And then the subsequent time after that has all been around building the program with people like Karina and others. And I'm excited to see where it's like. I have worked for very big organizations where those decisions take a lot of time to kind of implement and build. And this one happened very, very quickly.
And Zaileen and Karina, you will both be teaching modules within this course, and you both have stories. Karina, you go back to 2008 at UMass. You both have stories in terms of your path, how you got to where you are and your positions of leadership. I'm sure how you took the experience of UMass and applied it to what you've done in the world. And Karina, what sort of experience, firsthand experience can you offer to the students?
Well, thank you, Jeff, and thanks for having me today. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to talk about my McCormack experience and my UMass experience, because it really is a foundational experience. And to Zaileen's point, the people around the program, whether it be the excellent professors and staff that help the students every single day, or our classmates, or those who came before us, it really feels like you are part of a community and a family of sports business excellence, of the best in the world. And that is what makes UMass so special. And so when I talk to students or prospective students about attending UMass, it's really easy for me to talk about why and how it changed my life. And it's those types of experiences, like professional development trips to Boston and New York, and being able to execute those, in one weekend. The speakers that would come in at that time live, but also virtually, that we could hear from. Those are the types of experiences, Jeff, that completely shaped my career and moved my career in a way that I did not think it would move when I started. And that's what you want. That is what you want out of a graduate program or an undergraduate program. You want to be able to expand your horizons so that you can tap into your passions, what you don't like, what you do like, and follow your dreams. And that's what UMass did for me. And that's what UMass did for a lot of my former classmates who are now some of my best friends and colleagues. And I actually married one of them, my husband. I met in class. So UMass means a lot to us. And it's just an honor and a pleasure to be able to give back to the students and try to do the same thing for them that was done for me.
Yeah, Zaileen, I mean, similar to that, you both of you, Zaileen and Karina, in the LA market, as far as you could go, I guess, from New England, but you experiencing that, you're moving up in the industry to go, an organization like LA28 works with people around the world in that Olympic sphere. How did you work your way up that industry?
I mean, my career journey has been really interesting. I don't think, Jeff, that I could have told you that when I graduated from UMass, this is where I would end up. And I think, when I coach people who are graduates or recent graduates, I tell them to kind of keep an open mind, because you actually, don't know exactly how your career is going to pan out. You know what you like, and if you follow that and you follow the things that are really important to you, I think that'll lead you down the right path. But I couldn't have told you that I would be at LA28, or so much of my career would have been in the Olympic movement. I think, when I started my journey, and that was many years ago now, I think there was a very typical role and job type of job for women in the industry. It was around, partnership management, partnership marketing, servicing of partners, at least on the sponsorship side, some roles around event execution and logistics. And those were great. I dug my heels in and learned a lot in those first years of my career. But I also realized in those first few years that that's not where I actually like to lean in. That's not where my brain went. It's not what I found a lot of passion about. And so I think the pain point that I had was, that internal discovery, first of all, of like what was really true to who I wanted to be and what I found passion in. But then also kind of to manage the stereotypes and the typical roles that women would take versus men would take in the industry. And I was really lucky. Like I realized that passion. I had very good bosses, both men and women, who recognized that in me. And I had a skill set during my time at UMass that allowed me to kind of really excel in those areas. But I think, my hope is that a course like this and a curriculum like this will give students not only the skill set that is required if this is a direction they want to go, if they want to go on the business side of sport and the strategic analysis side of sport, but also the confidence, right? You need both. You need the technical skill set, and you need the ability to say, hey, wait, like this is something that I really want to do, and there's a path for me to get there.
Yeah, and Zaileen, sticking with you, I mean, look, there are certain things in the industry that need to be fixed that won't be fixed necessarily in a classroom with college and grad students. Then there are also, things that can be learned. And I'm sure you've experienced, your own struggles or barriers that were up against you. What are some of those challenges that you faced?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, Jeff, stereotypes and barriers exist in a lot of different places. Some of those are external and that, continue to exist today. And I think Nicole has laid some of those things out. For me, I am an Indian Muslim woman, and there are some stereotypes and barriers that existed just in my own upbringing that I had to move through on what an Indian woman was actually supposed to do in their role in society, right? And so I think that I had to push a lot of thinking in my own family of what that meant. I was the kid that would hide a hockey stick in skates, just like kind of the Bend It Like Beckham story, and go and play. And that was my passion. And I think my family and all families, hopefully, once they see your love for something and your passion, kind of say, okay, I'm embracing it, and off you go and do your thing. And now they're super proud. But I think that a lot of people, men and women, have these things that they have to deal with that are personal, and they have to push against to kind of achieve what they want to do for the rest of their life. Once you get to that point, then you're dealing with kind of external factors and the things that I think this course is trying to manage against, which is, what is the traditional role of women in the industry versus what do you want to do? If there's an atypical role in the industry that you want to go after, atypical from a historical perspective, what are the skills that you need to be able to have in your toolbox so that you're going to excel and succeed in those skills? And if you already have those skills, which a lot of women actually do, speak up, have confidence, like put your best foot forward, lean in, all of the phrases that you've heard of, like this is your role too. You can be a leader in this space. just like anybody else. The good news in all of this, I would say, and this will be my last statement here, is that the industry is evolving, not necessarily just from the role of women in the industry, but the transition of the industry into a more analytical base, strategic base, finance oriented base of thinking. And so, you know, some of my progression has been fortunate because it's happened alongside an evolution of the industry as well, to be a more business focused industry. And that has helped me.
Karina, I'm sure you had to put in your form of elbow grease as well, that there were not, things were not necessarily handed to you. What sort of struggles and what sort of challenges do you face?
You know, I've been really fortunate. I can't sit here and identify like a specific pain point that was like this big aha moment in my career. But I also think that that might be directly attributed to mindset and expectation setting, because, you know, in order to learn and grow, you have to overcome challenges. They're part of every day, every team, every job that you do. But I will say, Jeff, that once I got that seat at the table, once I was leading a team of several people at lots of different levels, it became very apparent to me that everyone was watching my every move, especially the women. How did I handle certain circumstances? What did I say? How did I act? What was the follow-up? This is when this model the way philosophy became glaringly important to me. People were basing their judgments, their opinions, their decisions on my actions. For example, in my previous position, I was the first woman administrator in a really, really long time to have a baby in the department. And it became very obvious that everyone was watching how I managed all of that. I worked in college athletics, so we had coaches watching. We had student athletes watching. We had young administrators, both male and female. And what was critically important was having a supportive boss and a supportive structure that understood the value of family in this particular case. And that made that transition so much easier. And without him supporting me, and without coming up with innovative and creative ways to manage all of this stuff, I would have failed and we would have failed. And I don't know if anybody who was watching would have had the confidence to continue on this trajectory of being able to do both and, right? And that was a moment, and I was, I think, 29 years old, 30 years old when that happened, that I realized how important it was, how important my conduct was. And I really embraced that. I really embraced that. And that's what I'm trying to teach others, and I will continue to try to teach those in the class, is women have the ability to influence a lot of decision making. And our experiences matter because they are very different than our male counterparts. It may be the same exact life path, but a completely different experience. And that's critically important. The good news is it worked. I had another child and I have two beautiful children, and managed to stay in college athletics for as long as I wanted to, at least.
Nicole, these two women will obviously be great role models for the students that you do have at McCormack. You can talk about, you know, you alluded to Kim Ng, I believe earlier, the new general manager for the Miami Marlins, and kind of off of Karina's point, you look at her resume, perhaps if she was a man, she might have been a general manager much earlier on based on what the work that she put in. And, you know, you can look up on Wikipedia just exactly, they show you, you know, the stats and everything, the positions that she's held. You have Becky Hammon in basketball. Amy Trask was an early trailblazer, becoming CEO of the Raiders in football. Representation clearly matters. And how will that play a point, both personable connections like these women and in a greater landscape, other women in the industry? How important will that be to the course?
Sure. Well, first, I want to just backtrack a little bit, because these two outstanding women that are going to be in the course, they talked a lot about that they might have been, and surely fortunate to where they got, and I don't know if I can say this on this, but these are two badass women right now, and that's where they are. And so I just want to make that clear before we move on anymore, that, yes, we all have different things in our career paths, but I have been more inspired over the past few months talking to these two and more women that are going to be a part of the class and just seeing their badassery that has made them where they are. So maybe we'll edit that out later. I apologize, but hopefully not, because it needs to be emphasized. But yeah, the course is going to be great. It's really going to help, like we've talked about, prepare women to be the innovators, be the disruptors, really change what we think about. We think about who can be in sport and who are going to be these change agents. And so it's based on partnering with our alums and our industry leaders that we have connections through, a lot of times through our alums, on really what are those skills they need to excel in this industry. And so in addition to Zaileen and Karina, we'll have Kate Johnson, who's the Director of Global Marketing Partnerships, Content and Sports Media at Google. She also is an Olympic medalist as well. Jessica Gelman, who's the CEO of Kraft Analytics Group and also spearheaded the efforts for the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, so a pretty heavy hitter in that area. And then Angela Ruggiero, who's the co-founder and CEO of the Sport Innovation Lab and also a gold medalist as well. So it's just amazing that our students will be able
all badasses, by the way.
Yes, just that's what I want to emphasize. It's just awesome to be part of this. And so they'll get to learn about these women's career histories. We'll also use case study methodology. We'll really dive into a specific time in their careers or maybe a key project that helped these women get to where they are today. And so the topics they'll range from leadership, emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, to business intelligence and analytics, to technology and sport. So really allow our students to really embrace both their technical skills and their interpersonal competencies, which are so critical. But just in addition to content, though, we really wanted to emphasize this community of support for our women in our department. And this class, it's going to give them industry mentorship, peer mentorship, but it's really going to provide them a space where they can take some risk and they can receive critical, constructive feedback that they need to really build their confidence and to build the skill sets that are going to be so vital as they move forward. So that's in a nutshell why I'm so excited to have all these wonderful, exciting women in the class and the content that we're going to go through.
Nicole, I could give men the benefit of the doubt, but I won't, because I don't necessarily think we've deserved it. And I'm sure there will be students at McCormack who are peeking in and say, Professor Melton, what's going on in this Women in Sport Business course? And I think there is a conversation to be had with what should the reaction of male counterparts be to a class like this, to different initiatives in sports business toward women?
Well, I think it's been, we have wonderful men. I'm not going to be too down on them because, our chair, Steve McKelvey, has been behind this initiative the whole time, being our biggest cheerleader, moving it forward. He also helped establish another partnership that we have with WISE to increase scholarship. So I'm going to say men are awesome. As we all know, just women are just awesome as well. But I think the main thing, men are welcome to join this class as well, because they need to learn how to be in this environment, and they're seeing it. They see these examples now, these women in leadership positions, but to change the norm of who we see at the top, who the guest speakers are coming in, right? Who are holding this position. So I think the main key thing is just to listen, to just show up and listen, and just be open to hearing what other people have to say, what these women have to say, giving them space at the table. I think that's the best way our men can be allies. And then if I could add one other thing, the technique of amplifying voices. So when Karina has a great idea or Zaileen has a great idea in a meeting, just say, yes, that was a great idea. And we can work with that. Because, there's a lot of research that will show we're just socialized to just hear men's voices a lot of times. And so really listening and then amplifying those women is the key to change, I think.
Zaileen, working in the Olympic sphere for LA28, you're able to see the inner workings of sports business really around the globe. And what sort of experiences have you taken from that? What have you taken note of in terms of the way that women are treated in sports business, both positive and negative, in other markets?
Yeah, Jeff, that's a good question. I would say first and foremost, working in the Olympic and Paralympic movement, automatically puts you in a place and sets up really great conversation around equity, because even in the United States, our athletes that you see on the field come from every corner of this country, from every income level, from every, gender, racial profile. And so there is a lot of diversity in who you see on the field, and because of that, we have to embrace inclusion, equity, diversity every single day. And I would say that exists across the Olympic and Paralympic movement. There definitely are kind of cultural, barriers in some countries with some national Olympic and Paralympic committees that, those have to be addressed. And I think being part of the broader movement allows those countries and those athletes in those countries who have a great voice to push the envelope. But I would start there. I think I feel very fortunate being in the movement, because I feel like there's already a step forward in understanding that there's an issue and doing something about that issue. And you saw that very recently, even not from a gender perspective, but when the USOC changed their name from the USOC to the USOPC, right? They just put Paralympic in the name of their NOC, which feels really simple, but is a big deal, right? And then I would say from an LA28 perspective, man, this organization, addressing diversity and inclusion is sitting in our core values every day. We, one of our core values is the fact that differences make us stronger. We talk about co-creation all the time. And I think that's because, when you look at the city of LA is not, there's no one LA, right? LA is like, Karina will nod here. LA is a mashup of like a whole hundreds of cultures, people, religions, ethnicities, types of food. Like it is the essence of like, what diversity looks like. And so it's very easy in that context to think through, gender representation, racial representation, and things like that. And so I would say all the way from the top, from Casey Wasserman, these are conversations that we have every single day, that we try to hold ourselves accountable to, that we put forward in like our marketing and our initiatives around activation. And so if anyone paid attention, the LA28 brand was launched late last year, the back half of last year. And that logo typifies that there is no one LA. It changes based on who you are. You write your own story based on who you are as a person and what you believe in. All that to say, Jeff, there's work to do, right? There is, we are continuously looking at our own organizational structure. We perform audits to make sure that we are walking the walk as we talk the talk, and that our organization reflects the city of LA and a really diverse environment. I think as we continue to put programs forward for our partners and for our fans, it is something that we're going to have to continue to reflect on, because the easy thing to do in these conversations is to understand it's an issue, make a concerted effort to address the issue, and then move on to the next thing, thinking it's already solved, right? This is one that you always have to come back to make sure that you're addressing.
Karina, you mentioned working in college athletics in the past, and I'm sure Title IX will be one of the early lessons brought to the surface in this class, but how do you still see Title IX affecting what goes on both on the courts, on the fields, and maybe also in sports business for women?
Oh, Jeff, well, Title IX is such an important federal law, and what it does, and particularly in college athletics, is it creates a checks and balances system that we are mandated to follow, but should follow anyway, because it's the right thing to do. And without getting too technical, basically Title IX ensures that females and males have equitable access to different aspects of being in our case, a college athlete, travel, equipment, all sorts of things. And so Title IX is what allowed women, I guess, to athletically compete. But what that has done is it's created a generation of women like me, like Z, who were fortunate enough to have been able to play sports throughout their entire lives. And that has built the foundation for team building and leadership and all of those things. I mean, I am lucky. I played basketball in college, and I played in a girls basketball league from 4th grade on. I mean, and in my time as a college athletics administrator, I've been able to sit with the pioneers of Title IX, the women who wrote it. And in those moments, I was a young 22-year-old, but I got to sit with them and thank them and say to them, because of you, I didn't have to play on boys teams. I wanted to. And it was my choice to play in boys leagues because, our team wanted to get better, but I didn't have to if I didn't want to. And I think that my generation may be one of the first to be able to say that as a 12-year-old, I was able to be on all girls teams. And, that's a testament to their work. And as a college athletics administrator and being the person who was responsible for making sure, along with our athletic director, that we were following Title IX. Every year it changes because the numbers changes and the percentages changes. I mean, it was the check back to everything that I did. Every t-shirt I bought, every plane ticket we purchased, every trip we planned, we had to make sure that it was equitable. And I met some of the best Title IX experts in the country and learned so much from them, and they became mentors to me. And I'm so grateful for Title IX because I wouldn't have had those opportunities without them. And it's interesting because from a PR perspective, people automatically assume that it takes opportunities away from men. It doesn't. It just makes sure that there's equal opportunities across both genders. And you have to be really creative in how you do that, especially when you have teams like football that have more men on them and there's nothing comparable, but it's doable and it's important.
I can't imagine men jumping to selfish conclusions, but it's again, that's sarcasm for everyone out there. Karina, I saw you muted yourself while you laughed, but I'm going to stick with you for a second as we finish up here. I want to know, again, we're talking about a sport here, women in sport business at UMass, a course here. There will be other classes around the country like this. There will be more movements that come up, I believe, in the next decade. Where do you want to see a class like this take women in sports business over the next decade plus?
Oh, man, that's such a great question. And this class was Z's baby, but I was lucky to come in early and with Steve McKelvey and others to listen to what the vision was. And I was all in because I realized very quickly that we could at McCormack be the place for women who are interested in the sports industry to become the future leaders of the sports business. And I believe that globally, that we can do that around the world. And UMass has the connections, UMass has the brilliant professors like Dr. Melton and others. UMass has the dedication and the vision and the resources to get it done. And I hope my 5 to 10 year goal with this program and this class is that this class turns into a series that turns into something that becomes a movement so that any student who is out there, whether she's an undergraduate or a graduate student who is interested in the sports business, knows about UMass and aspires to be a UMass graduate at some point.
Zaileen, same thing to you. What do you want women to get out of this over the next decade?
Yeah, Jeff, I have started reading this book, which I'm going to give a little plug to, and I'm actually going to show you because I have it here, but it's called The Feminist Fight Club. And I never actually, when I was younger, thought I would read a book like this, but I'm reading it. And the reason I bring it up is because, in the first few pages, there's a quote here that I want to read before I get to my answer. And it says, and this is by Shirley Chisholm, who's the first African-American woman elected to the US Congress. And she says, "The law cannot do it for us. We must do it for ourselves. Women in this country must become revolutionaries." And that quote, when I read it, meant so much to me because I in my heart am a very positive person, and I know that we will get to equity. I know we'll get there, but it's going to take a little bit of time, and we're not yet at a place where it will happen automatically. we need both men and women to jump in and to recognize that there's an issue. That's the first thing, is that there's a little bit of awareness. And then when that recognition happens, to instill some change. And I think this is what the UMass program will help do, is both the recognition of the issue and then instilling change. And so my goal with that is that, to Karina's point, there's a movement. And what happens is, there's a class that graduates that does there's a graduating class that does the program, who teaches the next wave of women, who does the program, who teaches the next wave, because in time, that is what's going to lead to the equity that we all want at the end of the day. And so, for me, that is the ultimate goal, is that there's this almost this flywheel, right, approach of like women who do the program, who have the skills, who will train the next, and we keep going. And I think with enough of those women out there, that we will end up in a very, very good place. I cannot wait for this thing to start.
And Nicole, I want to finish with you. You being at the forefront of this class, which, by the way, starts February 1st, Women in Sport Business at UMass. Why UMass? Why is UMass the place for a course like this to exist?
Simply put, it's the best place to be, Jeff. I mean, that's the simple answer. But I mean, we're with everything that we're doing, just to be a bit more long-winded, we're putting all the pieces in place. We're building on an incredible history with incredible professors and alums. And we've really established a culture where we empower our students. That's why we empower them so much. They critique us like Z and tell us that we need to add another class to do something, right? But we welcome that. We want to push the envelope with our students and make sure we're doing what we need to do. So we've built this foundation that not only empowers our students, empowers women. We elevate women in women's sports. We want to be advocates for cultural change and innovation. So along with this class, you can take advanced analytics courses in sports. You can take labor relations in sports with Professor Masterlexis. There's just a variety of things you can do here. Any interest or questions you want to answer, we're going to support you along the way. And so I think that's why you come here. Just to kind of piggyback just a bit more off the class, why it's been so exciting is I didn't really, we talk a lot about issues of women in sports, right? And barriers and stuff. So I kind of thought that's just kind of how this was going to evolve when we started this class. But really with interviewing these women and talking to them over the past several months of what the class is going to look like, I've just been blown away with seeing how these women think, what they're doing. They're thinking and doing things that we just don't see in the industry. They're thinking of solutions, and they really are disrupting it. And they're pushing our industry to the next level. And I just want our students to have an opportunity to have the same experience that I've had over this past 6 months of learning from these women. And I think that's what's most exciting here.
Hey, Jeff, can I add one thing to that? Do you mind? I think that it's critically important for anyone who's watching this to understand. Women have incredible attributes, and sometimes we can get pigeonholed, like Z said earlier, into certain roles, event management or kind of activation or client services. But we want women to understand that there is so much more that they can bring to the table. Women are great salespeople. Women are great communicators. Women are great negotiators and collaborators and innovators. And women are great disruptors. But Jeff, the thing that women are really great at is leadership. And there is no time like the present for us to stand up, like Z said, own it, and create opportunities. Create opportunities, which is what we're doing with this program, for other women to tap into their potential and to lead.
Well, let me say that everyone just saw what we had on this panel, but I was able to talk to all three of you outside of this discussion, and I know how passionate and how organic your energy is to what is going on here. So Nicole, Zaileen, Karina, I thank you so much for being with us today. Again, Women in Sport Business at UMass at the McCormack Department of Sport Management. That will start on February 1st. I'm sure there are a ton of links tagged here. A ton of different accounts that you can follow for more information. But thank you so much to everyone watching. This has been Fundamentals on Front Office Sports.